Welcome to Huddle Adventures. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Laura.
We recently returned from our very first cruise with NCL. It was the Breakaway out of New Orleans, the Vlogger Extravaganza group cruise. You might have heard of that.
Might have.
And we are going to share the 5 things we hated about the NCL Breakaway. Here we go. Number 1, super slow embarkation process.
So super slow. Basically, we arrived at 9:15 in the morning, which was our allotted time. We were designated for 9 a.m. arrival. And once we arrived there, we, kind of went through the check-in points, got to a sitting area, and we sat there for nearly 3 hours, over 2.5 hours, waiting to board the ship. There was absolutely no benefit whatsoever to arriving earlier. As a matter of fact, if I ever sail NCL again, which is still kind of up in the air, I will definitely sign up for 11:30 arrival time. I would never recommend arriving earlier if it is based on this sailing. Other sailings are, if their embarkation process is the same, I would say that earlier is not necessarily better. In addition to the long wait, their PA system hardly worked. You couldn't hear anything that they were calling. People were like yelling out to each other, group 2, group 3, and people were holding up finger signs because you literally could not hear anything that they were saying while you were listening for your number to be called. So it was a bit of a mess. Number 2, the old school muster drill.
Okay, guys, we knew before we boarded the NCL Breakaway that NCL brought back the old school in-person muster drill, and we admit we went into this with a great amount of dread in our hearts because we were not happy about that. We love the e-muster drill. We have done the e-muster on 3 other cruise lines since the restart, and it is the only good thing to come out of COVID. It is super fast, super efficient, and it doesn't stress out anybody. Now, this muster drill, granted, they haven't had an in-person muster drill in a while, but it was completely disorganized. They had ample time to prepare for this, and it was a mess, guys. I cannot express to you how bad it really was. I have a vlog on our channel where I show the muster drill, but it's early before it got completely packed like sardines. Basically, we were on the atrium level on level 6, and we were in lines. And in the front of your line was your person, your crew member, holding a life vest, showing you how to put it on. But we're literally doing this because you really couldn't see anything because everybody's standing in these lines 2 by 2 like Noah's Ark. And there's multiple lines like that all the way around the entire room, and it's front to back, shoulder to shoulder. And to make matters worse, they weren't ready to start the drill, but they were yelling at people to be quiet, shut up. We heard shut up being said multiple times by crew members. Be quiet multiple times by crew members. You can't use your phone in here, stuff like that. That went on for like 30 minutes before they actually started the drill because they were waiting for all the stragglers to get to the muster drill. So they wouldn't start until they had enough people there. And it looked like they were waiting for crew members to get there too because crew members were showing up late that were running the drill. So to us, it looked like not only was it disorganized, it seemed like the crew members didn't want to do it either. And to make matters worse, guys, when we got off the ship, we found out that there was an outbreak of COVID-19 on our cruise ship because many people in our group tested positive when we returned. And you could look at that and say, wasn't the best idea to have all these people jammed in tight like that. At the conclusion of the drill, they tried to call us out in orders by group to leave this area to go on to other parts of the ship. Well, there's really only 2 ways you could go, and both ways are completely jammed. Everybody took off. Everybody's trying to make it to the stairs or the elevator, and it was just mass chaos. We did not like that. Number 3, short-staffed bar service.
So the bar service was something that was completely different from any other cruise line that I have sailed. As Eddie has mentioned, we have sailed on 3 different cruise lines, significantly more cruises on Carnival and Royal. We've done a Celebrity and now NCL. And I have never experienced bar service where they've only had one bartender at the bar and just completely overworked and extremely grouchy, which, you know, you could kind of understand why they were so grouchy, being that they were so short-staffed. But it was completely disorganized. They tried to be organized in the sense that they had a lot of their mixes. Things were pre-mixed that they used. So like, if for example, you were ordering something with, different juices, they would have those all mixed together and they would use those to make your drinks. They had a lot of things pre-made, trying to save time, and I really do appreciate that. But they were really short-staffed, and the bartenders, they were really grouchy. They were not happy to be there. They were not happy, serving anybody, even though people I saw were tipping them very well and they deserved it. They were pretty miserable, and that's just not what I'm used to. I've seen short-staffed bars before where someone, was ill or, didn't show up for their shift or whatever, but it really looked like they did not enjoy their job, which took away a little bit from the enjoyment of being there. Number 4, customer service with an attitude.
All right, now this one really took us by surprise initially, until we really started thinking about it. Now, as we continue to mention, we have sailed with other cruise lines, and we have sailed extensively since the restart. We sailed through the worst parts of COVID. When the Delta variant was tearing through the country, we were on the Panorama, doing Mexican Riviera cruise, the Carnival Panorama. And then we were in Miami on a cruise ship in December, like 6 weeks later. So we went through masks and testing, and everybody stressed out. And we did not ever experience anything like we experienced on NCL Breakaway as far as customer service relations with guests. The best way we could describe it is there was a general attitude that they didn't want to be bothered, and you could tell that they weren't happy with their employer more so than the guests. Okay, now I also want to make it clear, this wasn't every crew member on the Breakaway with attitudes. It was a large number of employees on the Breakaway with bad attitudes. The majority of them had fine attitudes, but if you've ever been on a cruise ship, you rarely ever run into a single person that has a bad attitude. It's not common. And prior to Christmas, we saw in the news that NCL downsized their cruise. They let people go or fired people or laid them off right before the Christmas holidays. So they were intentionally running with fewer people. Now our room steward, the stateroom attendant, we only got to see him a couple times. He was obviously overworked, super stressed, super nice when we did see him. Can't complain anything about him. And he did a good job, but he was super busy. You didn't see him as much as you normally see your room attendant when you're on a cruise ship. Now, one thing we had a big problem with, and this problem was shared by many people that we were on the ship with, that was the customer service desk. Our group cruise was promised 6 liters of water per stateroom, and they didn't deliver on that. And they wanted $5.50 per liter of water. And getting packaged bottled water on the Breakaway was nearly impossible unless you bought these cartons, like the cardboard cartons of water. The brand was Flow, and they were $5.50. And we just thought it was just the point of it, the principle of it. We were promised that we would get this water. So it took, Laura called and talked to them. And they were like, she said, well, I have my receipt that proves that we're supposed to get these 6 liters of water, and I can show it to you. And they said, well, that's fine, but we still have to contact Miami, and Miami will have to make a decision on this. And we're like, really? It just and they were really didn't care. It was really, really cut, really, really cold. And you would think with our group, we had over 900 people on our group cruise, approximately 60 cruise vlog YouTube channels in the group, recording everything. You would think that they would went out of their way to give us the water that we're entitled to. It took the organizers of the Vlogger Extravaganza, it took Sharon at Sea, Lolita Loca, EECC, and Josh Holcomb fighting with these guys for 2 to 3 days, and they finally came around and delivered us our water. But the point that they had to go through that, they had to fight with them to get what we were promised. And their argument was, well, we changed our policy between the time you booked the cruise and the time you guys got on it, basically. And it's like, you know, it doesn't work like that. So they got that straightened out, and that was great. Another thing with the customer service that was a really, it had me shaking my head, Laura's shaking her head, all my fellow vlogger friends I talked to, we couldn't believe how unaccommodating NCL Breakaway was to the Vlogger Extravaganza group. They weren't like their cruise directors weren't involved with anything we did. We didn't see them. They didn't come around our group. There was no representatives of Norwegian showing up to anything we were doing on their ship. They gave us some time and space, but they did it early in the morning. They jammed us into H2O for our meet and greet. We have 900 people trying to jam into a spot that could possibly hold maybe 400 or 500 people. And we get it. You know, it maybe it's unrealistic expecting better, but they knew about this. This cruise has been booked for 2 years, and they had ample time. And at the end of the day, their service just wasn't there, guys. Not what we expected. Number 5, disorganized debarkation process.
So the debarkation process was probably the oddest thing I have ever done on a cruise ship. It started out, they had 2 different areas in which you could exit the ship, and you went through a main promenade area where they scanned your cards, you know, to check you out of your sailing, and then you kind of circled the entire ship. So you really did like an entire lap around the ship and a half before you exited the ship, and both areas exited at the same place. So it made 0 sense. Nobody knew what was going on. All the people that carried their luggage off of the ship were struggling to carry their luggage because, like we mentioned, you lapped the entire ship 1.5 times. Not to mention people with disabilities or the elderly who have trouble walking long distances. It was not ideal pretty much for about 80% of the people that were leaving the ship that day. If you didn't check your stuff the night before and weren't carrying a million things, and you weren't young and spry and able to walk the entire ship 1.5 times, it was a bit of a cluster. We didn't enjoy that.
Well, that wraps up our 5 things we hated about the NCL Breakaway. But we don't want you to think it was all bad.
Because right after this video, we're going to talk about the 5 things that we absolutely loved about the NCL Breakaway. So make sure that you're subscribed, hit the little notification bell, and check out the 5 things that we absolutely loved about the NCL Breakaway.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Hello, you don't even